Part 1. Some Measure of Peace. My thoughts have often turned to her in the years since I last saw her. She was my friend when no one else was, and she loved me when no one else would. The Vigilant. Chapter 1. The Machinist. Perorial 15, late spring, 995 years after the Year of Tumult, AYT, the present. The grindstone hissed as Reese forced a length of dicentrous steel into it. The metal's edge sharpened into focus as black dust flecked onto her shop goggles and jumpsuit. Her workshop was in Mackendoon's Undercity. Folk called it the Undercity on account of the whole stretch of apartments and workshops hewn out of a cliffside beneath the Overcity, which stood atop that same cliff. Spring had finally overtaken winter, and the air had turned hot and dry. But things stayed cool this far down, and would until summer came. As Reese shaped the beveled edge, a young man's form watched her from the catwalks above. Sometimes she'd see shadows of Kid, feel the warmth of him washing over her like it had beneath the chilly, starry nights they'd once shared. Kid had been just a couple years older than her, yet his voice was old and cold, sharp around the edges to cut anyone who drew too close too quickly. In this, he and Reese were not quite different people. The length of steel squealed as she turned it on the bench grinder to soften an edge. The sound of it shook away the lie of Kid's presence, and his shadow vanished, as it always did. Truth was, it had been close to half a year since she'd seen him. He lived for the benefit of strangers. Honorable as that path was, Reese could never help worrying. He thought no one in the world gave a care over him, but after all he'd done for her, she owed him proof to the contrary. She didn't owe him her heart, but he had that too. Even if he'd hardly spoken of himself, even if she didn't know his real name. Minus, Reese's helper bot, shuffled across the tool-cluttered tabletop to investigate her work, his metal feet click-clacking. He looked like a little person, with silvery coiled limbs that swiveled to any contortion. He stood half a meter tall, and two white oculi set in his spherical crown let him soak in all the world. He wore a miniature tool belt around his barrel of a trunk and worked with miniature tools to help Reese adjust hard-to-reach nuts and bolts or solder the tiny crevices etched into microchips. Minus craned his neck dangerously close to the spinning bench grinder. "Hoi!" Reese shouted. "You ain't built of dicentrous steel. This thing will chew you up, spit you out." The grinder growled as if in agreement. "You want to be in proper shape when Kid gets back, yeah?" His tiny arm waved away her concern. "Don't get fresh with me, bub. I'll scrap you into a toaster." Minus chortled. She'd do no such thing. Reese powered down the grinder. "I heard you screwing around up in my room earlier." She cast a glance at him like a mother to a child. "You found my ratchet then?" Minus nodded. "Were you pretending it was a six-string and that you were the world's greatest musician?" Minus nodded. "You put it up when you were done?" Minus stared, then slowly shook his head. "You keep losing my stuff. How are we supposed to work?" The mounted video monitor behind her chimed. The display read, "Jen and Brent McCobb." Reese pulled her shop goggles up over her forehead and set them atop a paper that read, "The Machinist Guild School of Mackendoon, Application for Formal Apprenticeship." "Go on," Reese said to Minus as she frowned at the unfinished application. Reese's workshop was thrice as high as it was wide, with an industrial lift in the middle for moving large projects to and from the access tunnels above her shop, about 40 meters up. Catwalks linked the four big pillars flanking the lift shaft. Chains of varying length and gauge swayed from the ceiling, clinking discordant tunes like chimes in the wind. Cage lights along the workshop's dimensions tinted everything gold. It all smelled of metal and steam and stone. The display screen from which her friends now called overlooked a quarter of the workshop from its mount. Reese turned fully toward the screen to hide the tattoo at the base of her neck. And though there was no way Jen and Brent could see it, she loosened the blue bandana tied to keep her wavy, caramel-colored hair out of her eyes and knotted it to hide the marks from her past. Minus dashed across the table, accepting the call with a dramatic push of the receive button. Reese rolled her eyes. I've created a bloody monster. Brent's face filled the display screen. He and his wife were about 40. His greased hair was short, black, and graying by his ears. His nose was big and his face square. He kept a horseshoe mustache, as was the style here in Mackendoon, and smiled often and truly. "Hello, Reese." "Evening, Brent. How is it?" He knit his bushy brow. Fine, just fine." "Good. And Jen?" "Oh, you know." "Wonderful. What's broken then?" "Nothing needs fixing. We just haven't seen you in a while," he said with a hint of friendly sternness. "You been working a lot?" Reese rubbed her sore forearm. "Got to stay afloat, taking whatever I can get." She looked at the bench grinder she'd been working before Brent's call. A dull, bean-shaped cybernetic node lay beside it. "Well, you know you're always welcome to bunk here, dearie." "Brent," Reese scolded him. The big man raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. "Anyway, Jen's been stewing some meat since morning. Parsnips, pearl onions, taters. The whole inn smells like mythical heaven. And I think she's just about ready to pull a nice round loaf of barley bread from the oven. We know you're not keen on the rye. We've butter as well. It's a bit slow tonight, and we'd fancy your company if you've nothing else better going on." Jen yelled from off-screen. "Tell her I miss those blue eyes. She needs to get out of that undercity, come up here and have some sunshine and fresh air. Goodness, we'll pay for the trolley if she's low on cogs." Reese had planned to dine on instant noodles. Something hot and cooked by Jen sounded better for the soul, but she needed to work. Getting contracts was hell without Machinist Guild credentials. "I don't know. There's a lot to do around here." Minus looked up at Reese, hands on his hips. "What are you, my conscience?" she said. "I've got stuff to do. Someone's got to pay to keep the lights on. Lights require cogs. Cogs require work. You like lights, yeah?" Minus wagged a tiny metal finger at her. "I can care for myself and require no reprimand, thank you." Reese's stomach growled. Minus shot her a smug look. "Curse it," she muttered. "Sounds like a vote for supper at the Copper Pot to me," Brent said, also smug. Reese nearly fell over when Minus jumped onto her arm, climbed, and plopped his little metal bum on her shoulder. He waved at Brent, who waved back with 2 fingers. Reese pinched the bridge of her nose. "Can Minus come too?" Brent chuckled. "Wouldn't have it any other way."